Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. It looks like we're ready to get started. Welcome to today's discussion, Scaling Your CS Team, Tactical Tips to Avoid Growing Pains. We're going to have a nice, relaxing panel discussion with some of the brightest minds in customer success, Gemma Cipriani Espinera from Chili Piper, and Jared Orr from Ideals and host of the Founders and Mentors podcast. As we all know, growth can be both a blessing and a curse if we aren't prepared and ready for that change. So our hope today is to give you some real world tactics you can walk away with and start implementing as early as tomorrow. Some of the things we're going to cover today include what technology recommendations we have for a growing CS team, the metrics you should consider using to measure success and influence your decisions, the structure, skipped a page, the structure of your team as it grows, how it may change, and ways you can automate processes and include playbooks into your daily strategy. But before we jump in, just a few housekeeping items. This discussion is being recorded, and we are going to send out that recording via email tomorrow. It's also going to be available on our YouTube channel, and you can find it on the UserIQ website. Lastly, if you guys have any questions for our panelists, please type them into the question box. I'm going to be monitoring these, and I'll try to include them in the discussion along the way, but we also have 15 minutes set aside at the end for Q&A. So we would love for everybody to participate today, so please don't be shy. Let's start with some introductions, shall we? I will begin with myself. My name is Maria Gay. I am the digital marketing specialist here at UserIQ. And at UserIQ, our mission is to give customer success teams the power to predict outcomes and impact company growth with the most intuitive, action-oriented platform on the market. And I'm going to be facilitating the discussion today. Next up, we have Gemma Cipriani Espinera. She has such a regal name. Gemma is the current VP of Customer Success at Chili Piper. Gemma, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that Chili Piper does?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Maria. Looking forward to this discussion. So at Chili Piper, we are a company that make meetings happen. We do this through providing the most advanced technology to schedule and route meetings. The mission of the customer success and support team that I lead at Chili Piper is to create and retain happy, active users of Chili Piper. I've been with the company for the past 10 months. It's been a time of rapid growth, and I'm very pleased to say that we have acted upon our mission, seeing a 91% increase in monthly active users in the time that I've been here, and that's been supported through scaling the organization that I'm responsible for. Prior to Chili Piper, I've had a decade working in SaaS. I worked my way up from entry level to VP level, and I have built teams from the ground up, both in London, in the US, and then fully distributed teams across the globe as well.
Thank you, awesome. We are very lucky to have you here today, Gemma.
Thanks, I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Next up, we've got Jared Orr. Jared is a CSM currently at Ideals, and he is the creator and host of the Founders and Mentors podcast. Jared, would you mind saying a few words about your background, what it is you do at Ideals, and also tell us about your podcast? We're all very big fans of it here at UserIQ.
Awesome, thanks, Maria. I feel like compared to the experience of Gemma, like this is going to be like a kindergartner and a neurosurgeon talking about the brain when it comes to talking about customer success. But I will do my best to add some value. But I know Gemma has a lot of great things to offer. But yes, I've been in customer success for over 3 years now. It is a fantastic space. I have no intention on leaving. For the last 2 years, I've been working at Ideals, and our product is virtual data rooms. So very similar to Dropbox as far as use cases. And yes, I am the host of the Founders and Mentors podcast. I interview a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of CEOs, authors. Many of the books I have on my shelf here, I've interviewed the authors of those books. And I've interviewed a lot of people in the customer success space, since I have a lot of people in my network that are within customer success, like Nick Mehta, CEO of Gainsight, Miranda DeConsky, and Christy Falteruso. So yeah, check out my podcast. I love talking with entrepreneurial-minded people. So if you're one of those people, let me know. Love to have you on.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Jared. And I think it's going to be really good to have two different perspectives. We got a CSM and a VP on the line, so it's going to be really good to get those takes on everything. So thank you for joining us, Jared. Okay, so before we get started, I want to begin with a quick poll. I would appreciate if everyone would just take a quick minute to respond. I'm going to leave it up for about 60 seconds to give everyone a chance to answer. So the question is, what do you think is most important when it comes to scaling your CS team as your business grows? Is it deciding on the right technologies? Is it nailing down those metrics? Is it maintaining and creating that team culture, or is it automating processes? So like I said, I'll give everybody about a minute to respond. And then we can dive into the results. Okay, about 10 more seconds here. Okay, so we have 7%. That's pretty low, in my opinion, for deciding on the right technologies. The big winner here is nailing down those metrics. Gemma, how would you have answered this? Or is there no one correct answer? Is that totally dependent on your team?
I actually do think that there is a correct answer. In my experience, it's a blend of the top, actually, no, not the top two. Nailing down the metrics, yes, and team culture.
Okay.
I believe that those are the most important things when it comes to scaling a team.
Jared, what about you? Are you surprised by these results in any way?
Not entirely. I totally agree with Gemma. Nailing down the metrics is incredibly important, and then establishing a culture early on, establishing your vision early on, which is a huge part of the culture, are two very important parts. So I agree.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to our first topic. Before we dive in, I just want to remind everybody, as we get into the discussion, anything that comes up, please submit any questions you have for our panelists by entering them into the box labeled "Enter a question for staff," and then click send. I'll be monitoring these, but we do have time put aside at the end. We're going to answer all your questions. So our first topic is CS technologies. So my question is, what processes do you use to evaluate a specific CS team's need for software? Gemma, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's a great question. And, you know, technologies and automation was on the poll as well. And don't get me wrong, I think these are very important things. I think just the priority of order is slightly lesser than mission and culture. With that said, it's very easy to be in a situation where you are either experiencing high growth or can see high growth coming and think, oh my, I need to get a CS tool stat, and go to market and look at a bunch of tools and learn through that experience of what you like and what you don't like. This is fine, but a hack that I would like to share with this audience is the people who are going to be using the tools are the ones who are going to have to be happy with it. So where I found the best results in bringing in technologies for the team is to first start by creating an itinerary of all the tools that the team are using, because what you will find is that different people might use different tools at different stages in the customer journey and for different customers. So you want to get that full view of what is available, even if there's no rhyme or reason as to who uses it and how they use it. Just get that itinerary set. Then get a really good handle of the time that your team is spending on these different tools, and ask the team through survey format where they feel they could be saving time or where they feel things could be automated, because it's more often than not the people closest to the problems know the solutions to them. So itineraries and surveys with the people who want to be the end users are super important before you go out to market. And the other piece that you want to do is you want to think about where you need a tech to either help you save time or where you need tech to help you do jobs that you're not already doing. So an example could be, you know, there's a CSM team who are so stretched that they only have time to get customers through onboarding, and they don't have time to help customers actually adopt the product once they've launched them. It's kind of like set and forget, and come to us if you need to raise the ticket. So you need to create a list of all the jobs that you would like the team to do if they had more time, and then that is basically your template of how you should be assessing vendors, where they're going to save time and when they're going to help your team do things that they're not already doing, like
Right.
like adoption triggers, for instance. So yeah, those are kind of my hacks, things that I learned along the way.
Thank you. That's fantastic. But I know that there are different technology needs for a CSM versus a VP. Jared, you want to dive into like what it is that you need out of a technology when you're working in your day-to-day?
Yeah, for sure. So I was the second CSM hire at my current company. And now we are a group of 11. We represent 5 different countries. We've implemented tons of technologies and processes, and I've seen it come from the ground up. So it's been a really awesome experience. And when I first started, we had this very basic CRM, and now we're using HubSpot, and it was a world of difference. We also implemented some customer success software platforms that helped us create a customer journey map, automate that journey map, create segments and alerts for our customers so that we can more proactively work our book of business. So yeah, a CRM and some sort of customer success software platform are very important. Right now we have an embarrassment of riches as far as platforms to choose from. UserIQ is a big one, but there's plenty of others. So do the research. I love what Gemma said about talking to your team, figuring out kind of what they're doing in their day-to-day and what technologies can be used to automate certain processes or help them be more effective in certain tasks. Because it really depends, because customer success is different with every organization. So you really just got to figure out kind of what is not working, what is working for the team, and then go from there when it comes to implementing technology.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you guys have, what technology pitfalls should CS teams be looking out for to avoid? Give us your cautionary tales. Gemma, you have any?
Yeah, so I think one pitfall to avoid is bringing in CS tools that make you look good as a manager or director or VP of the team, right? So it really has to be a tool that is going to help drive action for the team, as opposed to a tool that is just going to give you great reports. Like you can get by with Google Sheets or Excel, Google Slides and PowerPoint for a very long time. And so it's really focusing on tools that are going to save time and bring data together to drive action for the team. I think another pitfall is to forget that, beyond like the CS specific tools, you need to have consistency in the way that you are communicating, collaborating and enabling both your team and your customers. And that's really important, not just from the CS point of view, but from the sales to CS handover point of view, because you want to be communicating, collaborating and enabling customers with consistency, right? You don't want that experience to be different from the handover from sales to CS, as an example.
Right. Okay. So actionable data. We want smooth transitions, a cohesive experience for the customer. Jared, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I love what Gemma said about, you can use Excel, you can use Google Sheets and Google Documents. They're great tools. They're simple tools. Most people know how to use them. And kind of like I said earlier, we have an embarrassment of riches, not just with CRMs and customer success software platforms, but technology platforms to automate anything. We got Monday.com, Gong, Intercom, so many things that we can use to, be more effective at our jobs. And sometimes, from my experience, not in my current company, but at past companies, our management and executive teams have, implemented maybe a little too many platforms to where it made our jobs more complicated, and we had to have all these tabs open to do just so many different tasks. And I'm a minimalist, so I like having the least amount of things to do as possible, least amount of tabs open. That's just who I am. So the less software platforms you can implement, I feel the better, because then things are more simplified and you can focus on what is most important, and that is the customer experience.
Right.
Yeah.
So we got a good question in. Gemma, I'm going to ask you. So someone asked, what value or metric have you had to advocate for a CS leader from the business? In other words, what has been the pushback when you've had to request for tools, headcount, etc.?
Good question. So I've been, I guess, quite a unusual position where I've actually been the person pushing back on tools. Everywhere that I've scaled a team, I've had CEOs who were like, try this out, check this out. They're doing this. Have you thought about this? So I actually would say that I'm more like Jared in the sense that less is more, and I only bring something in if it's, absolutely necessary, if it's really going to drive action for the team and save them time. With that said, it's always really helpful to have an understanding of what you're going to give back to the business from bringing in the tool. And so I think the most obvious way to do it is to think of, if we bring this tool in, we're going to improve our retention by so many points. Another way that you could do it is by saying, if we bring this tool in, we're going to save this many hours, so we can spend more hours with our customers, and in doing so, we can increase the portfolio of the team. Therefore, our headcount is going to be reduced because we no longer are throwing as many bodies at our customers, because we have a tool that is allowing our team to do more with the time that they have available in the day. So those are two good techniques to prove the value of bringing in the tool.
Mm-hmm. All right, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so let's move on to topic number 2. So we have our tools in place, let's say. We're actively gathering data. What metrics should we be tracking? What, where should our focus lie? Gemma, we know the typical metrics like churn rate, NPS, renewals, etc. Anything we should be looking out for specifically as a team is growing?
Yeah, so I think, there's a standard, as you've just said, NPS, logo retention, net retention, these 3 numbers you're probably never going to get away from. But what I found really helpful is starting by mapping your customer journey and then assign metrics to each stage of that journey. So effectively measure everything across the entire journey, from when a customer is researching and evaluating you, to when they're being sold, to when they're being onboarded, to when they're driving adoption, to when they're in the growth stage, to when they're advocacy stage. Like, what are the measures of success? So effectively, like, measure everything. Measure everything as quickly as you can, but what you focus on needs to be something that you're ready to change over time. So start by focusing on something that is maybe the biggest impact to churn, and then as your team grows, as the maturity of your business expands, you might move your attention to some of these other metrics. So measure everything, but focus on what you can have immediate impact on. Jared, I don't know, what do you think about that?
I completely agree. That's really what we did when we created our customer journey map. We did that, well, we didn't do it first because the company had been around for a long time, but when we started implementing these new software platforms and these processes, we started with the customer journey map. Like, hey, what are the milestones that need to happen from the time they're transferred over to the CSM to their renewal that will make them successful and reduce the likelihood of churn? Our product, Virtual Data Room, it's a little different. Like, if they close their data room, it's not the end of the world because like their transaction and project is done. But we want to make sure they have a great experience so they continue coming back to us when they have more transactions and projects. So yeah, once we had the journey map set and the milestones set, We segmented out our customers to make sure that, like, you know, the personas, they fit the milestones, they fit the segments, so that we knew what to focus on and we knew what to create alerts for, so that we were proactively managing their journey from the time we got them to the time it was time for them to renew.
Awesome. Fantastic. So, well, we know if a customer is growing and thriving, we're doing something right, right? So do you guys, what is your thought on measuring customer growth? Is that something that you guys measure? Is it something that can be measured? Would you like to expound on that at all?
Yeah, do you want to take that one, Tara? Because I know you have quite a unique way of looking at customer growth.
Yeah, well, kind of like I said, it's an interesting product that we have, because, you know, customers leave us all the time. But I've been here for 2 years, and I can only think of 2 times a customer left us because we dropped the ball on something, or they had a bad experience and we just couldn't salvage it. Unfortunately, that does happen. But customers leave us frequently because, you know, they're done doing what they need to do. So I guess what we try and do when it comes to customer growth is we just do our best to you know, proactively manage them as best we can. Like if they're stuck in onboarding, if they haven't, like for example, if they haven't uploaded X amount of documents, if they haven't logged into their data room X amount of times by a certain, you know, date, if they haven't added enough users, I'm able to see that and reach out and just see how they're doing, see their activity, and make sure that they're getting the full value of their data room. Because with a product like this, it's so easy for me as the CSM to just hide behind the facade of, oh, I'm just another vendor, which technically we are. We're just another vendor, but I'm here to make sure that you're getting value, that you're getting a great experience, and I'm your guy. I'm the one that you need to be reaching out to for any questions. We have a support team, but I'm the one that you should be reaching out to. And so that's really how we measure the growth, is like through these segments, through these alerts and milestones. And then I just do my part to make sure that we're not seen as just another vendor for them.
Right. Awesome. Gemma?
Yeah, so look, you know, as someone who lives and breathes the growth space, it's where I do my best work. The reason why I've been able to stay in this growth environment is because growth always equates to a dollar amount, right? So as long as you're really close to the definition of that amount and you're looking at it, you will be able to navigate the scaling of the team to chase that growth number and to keep bringing it up. So for me, customer growth is company growth, and that is something that boils down to the net retention number. And there's like almost 100 different ways that you can measure net retention, but effectively it's how much more or how much revenue are we left with a year later from the same set of customers. That is your net retention percentage. For scaling a customer success and support team, though, it's hard to focus on that from day one because that's a lagging outcome. So instead, you have to think about the kind of activities and the kind of indicators that you know are going to drive that net retention number. So for Chili Piper, with our software, the idea is that you buy a certain amount of licenses, and we know that in your company you have more employees who can use the product. So we're always trying to ensure that you're using all the licenses that you purchase. So that monthly active user number is really, really important for us, because we know that if you use all your licenses, at some point you're going to need to buy more as your company grows, and as you get our technology to route and schedule meetings into more teams. So that's a really great indicator for us. Then there's other things that we know we have to do, activities that we know we have to do to drive those monthly active users. So examples could be dealing with customer support tickets. It could be getting customers launched. In fact, Maria, I don't know if you have that view of our scorecard that we use.
Yes.
But this kind of breaks down what I'm saying around, you know, there's different activities that we measure. These lead to indicators that we know will indicate how well we're going to perform on the growth side of things. And then there's lagging outcomes, which are like the actual net retention, logo retention, NPS, amount of time of the subscription, lagging outcomes piece.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this with us and letting us like peek behind the curtain a little bit at the Chili Piper scorecard. So thank you.
Yeah, so with us as well, it's like we look at this every week across the entire company. So we always know how we're trending. But this will change in a quarter because we're constantly changing it based on, you know, the new products and company initiatives that we have. So again, it's really measure everything, but focus on what you can make an immediate impact on that's going to drive results for the business.
Awesome.
And if I could just say, we rely heavily on NPS as well. I get notifications constantly about scores that we've gotten. Luckily, most of them are good, but with the detractors, we're expected to reach out as quickly as possible.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, thank you. I think we're ready to move on to our next topic. Let's talk teams. What is the most important thing to remember or look out for as a CS team grows? Jared, I'm going to start with you because I know you mentioned this earlier. When you started at Ideals, you were a 2-person team, and you guys have now grown to an 11-person team serving 5 different countries. What has changed the most in that time?
I would say, well, the technology that we've implemented has changed definitely the most, and it's definitely made our jobs a lot easier and a lot better. So that's a big one. And just our daily and weekly expectations as CSMs, you know, we have a more defined step-by-step process on what we should be doing on a daily and weekly basis to make our customers successful and to do our jobs well. So I'm really grateful for that. It's been great to see these changes, but yeah, those are definitely the 2 things that have changed the most.
Okay, awesome. And Gemma, do you think as a company grows, you're going to see the CS team shift from a more reactive to a proactive model? And if that's the case, what are some things to remember as that shift occurs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is always front of mind in scaling a team. How do I ensure that we are ahead of the issue that could arise with the customer, or how can we ensure that we are ahead of knowing when there is an opportunity to expand the licenses within this customer? It's super difficult to move from reactive to proactive unless you have a really good handle of where time is being spent, because time is the biggest asset in any customer facing role. I mean, obviously technical experience, industry knowledge, you know, there's a lot of things that you learn along the way, but the biggest complaint of any customer facing team is I wish I had more time, or I don't have enough time to do this. So having a really good handle of the time that's being spent to support and service your customers is a great way to then identify where you could have different specialized roles or different types of customer journeys to be more efficient with your time.
Awesome. And so we know what teams should do. Again, let's talk about, are there pitfalls? Anything that CS teams should not do? Things to avoid as they grow, common mistakes that you guys have witnessed? Jared?
Yeah, well, yes, time is our most valuable asset as CSMs, for anybody, but especially for CSMs. And yes, my experience, you know, working in these teams, yes, time can be one of our biggest complaints because we don't have time to do all the things that we're expected to do and make our customers happy and have a good relationship with sales and all those good things. And I would say my previous company, a bit of a cautionary tale. There was a time where a lot of CSMs were quitting, and instead of backfilling the CSM team, more executives and more salespeople were being hired. And we were at times literally screaming for, well, not literally screaming, but we were crying out for help, for more CSMs, because it was getting way too overwhelming. We couldn't carry out our jobs effectively. It was difficult. And luckily they started backfilling the CSM team. We were a lot less stressed. We were able to manage our clients better because we had more time to work with them. And the overall morale of the CSM team and the sales team got a lot better when more CSMs were there to help us out. So a bit of a cautionary tale. And I understand I'm not a CEO. So CEOs, please don't come at me in the comments because I don't know what it's like. But that is just something from my experience as a frontline CSM that I hope more CEOs are able to understand.
Right, resources have a massive impact on
Exactly.
on the team left behind, right?
Mhm.
Gemma?
Excellent. Yeah.
Gemma,
Yeah,
anything?
so, yeah, if we're talking about pitfalls, I can share a personal one. So I think I mentioned, I went from entry level going up to VP, and as part of that, it was, player coach, like full coach. And one of the things that I learned from was initially I thought, oh my gosh, if I could just clone myself, I just need to hire more people who kind of think like I do and work like I do, so that the transition to my customers is going to be, smooth, and there'll be like harmony in the team. But we were talking about this the other day, and I made a joke, cloning, it might be scientifically possible, but it's frowned upon for a reason. And I think what happens when you clone, or when you try and scale a team on, similar people and similar mindsets, is that you lack that diversity of thought that is required to be successful when you have massive growth. So what's really important is to hire a team that is diverse as possible. And I mean diverse in many concepts, but really I'm thinking about the way people think. Like, try and hire people who think differently, because that way they will be coming in and picking out, gaps or friction points in the plan that you have built to make it stronger. Don't let your customers be the ones to tell you where those gaps and friction points are. Let your team be the ones to help you fix it. So that's my piece. Diversity of thought is super valuable when scaling.
Yes, agreed.
Totally agree. So I think we can all agree that creating a customer-centric culture on any team, right, or on any CS team, is pretty important. But how do you go about imparting that culture on a team? Jared, what are your thoughts? Oh, I think we
start.
Mm-hmm. Well, it really starts from the top up.
You
okay?
slow down and then you sped up.
I think
Can you guys hear?
You're in and out.
Can you hear me now? Am I good now? I'm in and out.
You're in and out. I think we may be
okay.
okay.
Okay, I'm talking. Am I good?
There's a lag.
No.
Here, why don't we
maybe start with Gemma.
I was gonna say we'll let your internet catch up. It's buffering, let's say. Gemma, what are your thoughts
on? So the question was around driving customer centricity.
How are you imparting that customer centric culture onto a team? How do you get the team members to buy in?
Yeah, so one tactic that worked really well at my previous company, Decibel, which is now part of the Medallia company. They service an enterprise customer with digital experience analytics solutions. We took that team from an account management focus to a CS focus, and the focus was from selling to customers and going towards helping customers. So rather than managing the paperwork, like, how do we help them be successful? And in doing that, we focused on driving a customer-centric culture by asking the team every week to submit examples where they had made a customer's life easier. And this was something I got inspiration from reading a book by Jean Bliss. I think it was Chief Customer Officer 2.0. And if you ask people how they've taken the moment to make their customers' lives easier, the examples you get are profound, because a lot of them don't come from your own tech or don't come from the day-to-day of the job. And that's really important to drive a culture where the customer is at the center of it, because even if you can't service them through your own services, you should be the partner who's going to help them achieve the outcomes or look good for that presentation that they're doing, report that they're doing, so on and so forth. So yeah, asking people for examples of where they've made a customer's lives easier, and then selecting the best examples to share with the rest of the company is a really, really strong way of driving a customer-centric culture.
I like that a lot. I like the idea of celebrating wins across the team and the company. We do that here at UserIQ. It's important for us, so absolutely. Jared, do we have you back?
Am I back? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry I'm not sure what happened there. I'm sorry about that.
The remote world, right? This is
yeah, technology, it's wonderful. I don't know if I can add much to what Gemma just said, but it's from my experience, it starts from the top up. You know, if the C-suites and VPs are not on board, if they don't have a vision for the customer experience and the desired outcomes of our customers, then, you know, it's hard to have a CSM team that can really champion that. So it starts at the top, and I've been fortunate to work with very customer-centric CEOs, or know a lot of customer-centric CEOs personally, and speak with them about how they do things on my podcast and outside of my podcast. And I hope that, you know, someday if I have the opportunity to start my own company, I can learn from their example and create a vision up front about how to champion our customers and make them as successful as possible from day one.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you both. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. We're going to do one more poll. Let me get it up for you guys. Again, I would appreciate it if everyone just take a second to answer. I'll leave it up for about 60 seconds. So the question is, does your team currently use Playbooks? If so, what kind? Yes, we use Playbooks. Yes, we use automated Playbooks, or no Playbooks for us. So leave it up. Give you guys a chance to think it over. About 15 more seconds here. Okay, we're gonna close the poll and let's look at these results. Oh, I'm actually pretty shocked by
Wow.
this.
Yeah.
Are not using Playbooks. Only 4% are using automated Playbooks. We're gonna dive into Playbooks next, but I'm just curious to know, Gemma, Jared, are you guys surprised by these results?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
Emma?
me too. Yes, I would have predicted more. Playbooks.
Okay, well, before we dive into the topic, just one final reminder. If you guys have questions for the panelists, now's the time to get them in. We are going to move on to Q&A in about 5 or 10 minutes. So just type them into the box, click send, and we'll get to all of your questions in a moment. But we're going to talk automation and Playbooks. Let's start with Playbooks. First things first, why do we need Playbooks in customer success? Jared, I know you have some thoughts on Playbooks. So let's start with you.
Well, think about the highest paid people in our society, athletes and actors. They have a script, they have a playbook, they have those things in place so that they can be successful at their job and be rich and famous and all those good things, right? Now, obviously, as CSMs, we're not going to be probably rich and famous like, you know, athletes and actors, but we need to have some sort of playbook, some sort of something in place that helps us know what we can do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to do our jobs effectively. So that's why Playbooks, in my opinion, are extremely important and are needed for CSMs, for sales. You can make that argument for almost any department, in my opinion.
Awesome. Gemma, are Playbooks vital for the success of your team? Are you guys using them?
Yes and yes. Now, that doesn't mean that I think you can just go and download a bunch of Playbooks and say that you have Playbooks. That's not how it works.
Yes.
So if you don't have a playbook, what you're telling me is that you are going above and beyond for your customers, being absolutely heroic and doing it by hook or by crook. And that is not a reflection on, you know, your abilities as a CSM, but it is a reflection of some inconsistencies in the experiences for your customers. Because if it's not written down what the standard is, then the experience is going to change depending on which CSM you're being assigned, which products you've bought, which country you're based in, and so on and so forth. And what we want to always do is create customers' consistency in their experience. For instance, we want a customer to feel like they know Chili Piper as the vendor, not Gemma, not Seth in my team. Like, we're all part of one brand and one voice, and we want that consistency to come through to our customers. So I think they're very important, but it does take a lot of time to write them up. And again, it's kind of like that itinerary process with bringing in tech. Like, you have to first start by asking everybody in the team to write down the different steps that they take at different parts in the customer journey, and then try and go through a process to obviously optimize and bring like a minimum standard to what that experience should look like.
Right. So Gemma, you mentioned, or you can download 1 million playbooks right now, right? It doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, because it's totally different depending on the product and
so, exactly. But also, I mean, you have to have some sort of temperature check on the performance of the playbooks. Are they performing well? So how do you guys track the performance of the playbooks that you're currently using? Jared, I'll start with you.
I think that's where the automation comes in place. So like we put our playbooks into our CSM platform, and we put those we put all the milestones and everything into the customer journey map and everything. So my direct manager is able to see the milestones that have occurred, the alerts that have happened, and then my responsiveness to those alerts. She's able to see how quickly I've been able to respond to, let's say, negative NPS scores or client inquiries via phone or email. So she's able to see like how well I'm performing to the standards of the playbook because it's been automated. So I know that's kind of a simple answer. I mean, I don't really know the back end works of everything because I'm the frontline guy, but it definitely has helped me know that I should be responsive, and I should be doing this because I'm going to be my boss is going to like judge my performance as a CSM based on this playbook and the automation that's been put in place.
Right. Gemma, what is your take on this?
I think what Jared touched on is really important. You should be able to ideally understand how much of the playbook is being completed, how long it's taking to being complete, if there's certain CSMs who are not completing it. That's all very helpful granular detail for kind of an operation and ops focus to playbooks. But more than anything, you want to come back to the activities that the playbook is supposed to drive, the indicators and the outcomes, right? So if you have put in a bunch of playbooks to improve onboarding, and you're measuring that by the number of days it takes to launch customers and the NPS that they give you, and you're not seeing results, then you have a problem with your playbooks, even if people are going through and checking them being done. So I think it's really important to consistently come and review that scorecard to get a good feel of how well your playbooks are performing.
Right. So outside of, and this may deal with within playbooks, but maybe outside of playbooks, are there any other processes you feel are important to automate as your team grows? Jared, how much automation is in your day-to-day?
I don't know. That's a good question. Because right now I think like we have enough automation in place to really do our jobs well. But again, like customer success is different with every organization, depending on the product, depending on just the team itself, because customer success is so new. So I don't know if there's really a one size fits all answer to that. I don't know, Gemma, what do you think?
Yeah, so this is where you make me feel warm inside by asking me this question, because we use Chili Piper a ton to reduce a lot of the admin work that we have for our CSMs and customer support and professional services people. So all of our handovers from sales to the CS side of the house are routed through our own technology. We also automate all of the hours that the team is spending with customers through capturing meetings in Chili Piper, and we can automate the cadence of meetings through Chili Piper. So that is a really, really strong automation piece for us.
Awesome, thank you. Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the Q&A portion. Again, while we're going through, we have a few questions that were submitted during the presentation, but if anything pops up, you have any burning questions for Gemma or Jared, remember you can submit them while we're doing the Q&A. Just enter them into the box labeled enter a question for staff and then click send. And if for some reason we cannot get to your question, we have your email addresses. We'll have the team reach out to you. No matter what, we will get your questions answered. So the first one we got in, we'll see who wants to answer this first. So what has been the costliest mistake you have seen or experienced when scaling CS? Gemma?
Mm-hmm. That's a really tough question.
Yeah. I have an answer to that, Gemma, if you want to.
Why don't you go for it, Jared, and I'll keep thinking.
Okay. Well, as far as like financial cost, I don't know because I wasn't involved in that. But I will say this: at a previous company I was at, there was a time where they would put a CSM and like a salesperson together to work on a book of business together. And because we had a lot of products, so many products with different levels and everything, so there was a lot of room for cross-selling and upselling. So basically, the CSM and the salesperson, sometimes there's like two CSMs and a salesperson, would tag team it together to make sure that like they were bringing a lot of value to the customer, and they would like share the commission and everything with certain upsells and cross sells. Do not do that. Just don't do that. There was a lot of headbutting. There was a lot of contention per se within the two teams, and these two teams need to have harmony with one another. They need to be best friends, and that from my experience was a recipe for the exact opposite. So as far as cost, it just cost a lot of morale. It cost a lot of probably some satisfied clients, because there were times where clients like didn't want the sales team and the CSM trying to like upsell them on all these different things at the same time. So eventually it was done away with, and a lot of things improved after that. But that was a mistake that I hope I never have to experience again.
See it again.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important to have alignment with the metrics across teams, within your own team, but across the business, so that you've got people, pulling the company forward together and not letting. That's super important.
Definitely.
All right, so we had a question for Gemma. You were talking about when we were talking about, getting that buy-in for that customer-centric culture on your team. Somebody asked, how do you share the wins with the rest of the company? Do you guys have an intranet? Is it a newsletter? Do you Slack it out? How are you sharing those wins?
Yeah, so I think, find something and stick to it is the key thing. At some companies I've worked at, we would have quarterly kickoffs, and that would be a great forum to share wins. Other companies will have weekly all hands, again, great forum, but sometimes there's not enough time in those to go kind of deep into the wins. At Chili Piper, we also have multiple Slack channels that talk of different types of customer success stories. And we have an internal weekly newsletter, which is called The Source, that goes out to our team and talks about wins. But I think it's just consistency, right? Find something and kind of stick to it so people know where to go to find those stories.
Did you say it's called The Sauce?
Yes, it is.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We also have a version of it that goes out to our customers, but then we have our internal one as well.
I really like that.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Jared, do you guys share those internal wins or anything?
Yeah, we do. We don't really have a newsletter, but yeah, all hands meeting, usually there's a segment at the beginning where different people throughout the company share their wins, pertaining to their job function. And we have a CSM Slack channel where, yes, we do share wins just freely. And it definitely boosts a company and team morale for sure. So I really enjoy hearing those things.
Right. Awesome. Okay, our next question, and this is a good one. And this is what customer success, the industry is struggling with right now, I think. So how do you get your C-suite to invest in support for customer success? So how are you proving that worth and getting that buy-in? Gemma?
Yeah, I think it comes back to taking ownership of net retention. It can sound scary when you're perhaps not the person who is actually running the commercial negotiation, providing the paperwork, and getting contracts signed. But ultimately, those contracts get signed when you organically help your customers, right? So I think it's aligning yourself as close as possible to that metric, so that you can prove the impact of the different initiatives that your team are having to actually driving the growth of the business forward.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to add, Jared?
Yeah. Well, as a frontline CSM, it's easy to think like, oh, I'm not in leadership. I have no say in this, right? But if your CEO is willing to listen, and let's say you don't have a VP of customer success or a director of customer, like you really don't have a representation in the C-suite or the executive board, bring that up, talk about it. Email your CEO, say, hey, I'd love to talk to you more about this, or I think we need this. And the right CEOs will listen and hopefully implement that, because if you're in software and tech and you don't have representation of customer success in your executive suite or executive board, then you're behind. I can say that with confidence.
Right.
Yeah, I think back to Jared's point, like one sure way to get CS recognition is through case studies. Get as many case studies as you can and share them with your C-suite, because that is exactly what your C-suite wants to hear. It's what your investors want to hear. They want to know why customers bought you and why they will stay and grow with you. So that's a very solid strategy.
Bring data, yeah, for sure.
Awesome, thanks you guys. So we had somebody ask, what advice do you have to start creating a playbook? Like if nobody's using them right now, where do they begin?
So I think, I mentioned already, like ask everybody to write down what they do for a certain type of task. So most playbooks, you're going to want to think about them in terms of the customer journey again. So what is our playbook to onboard customers? What are all the different steps that we have to do to get them to launch successfully? What is our playbook to get customers to adopt once they've launched? What type of training do we provide them, and services and support? What is our playbook to thank customers? What is our playbook to turn customers into advocates? What is our playbook to resolve customer risks? Like, think about it in these different phases of the journey, and then write down as much as you can. And once you've got that itinerary, try and understand if there's variances, if there's places where people are getting stuck, and ask your customers, your existing customers, to comment on it, to say to you what was helpful and what wasn't helpful, so that you can start to build a playbook that is going to provide value to them.
Right. Jared, anything to add?
Honestly, no. I think that's a perfect strategy.
Okay, our next question. How do you encourage CSM creativity when using playbooks? I have found that team members are satisfied with completing tasks versus creatively problem solving when a team is overly playbooked. So is there a downside to playbooks? Jared, you want to say?
If you're mapping out like everything they should be doing, like down to like the day, down to like the hour, of course, then there's little room for creativity. And this is how you should respond to all these inquiries, and here's 100 inquiries, and here's all the responses for each one. So I mean, that's a bit of an extreme example, but I guess what I'm saying is I think it's good to have a basic like skeleton almost per se of like what you should be expected to do, but then let the CSMs kind of fill in, because they know their customers better than anybody. So obviously each customer is a different approach depending on the relationship, depending on the situation. So let the CSMs kind of be able to fill in what they feel is best for their book of business.
Awesome. Okay. This is a big question. How do you make the handoff from sales to CS successful? Who wants to take that one?
We use Chili Piper. You should check it out. Really awesome. I won't go into the spiel, but it saves a lot of time and provides a lot of consistencies for customers during that critical period, and gets them to the right team quickly so that you can launch them quickly. I think beyond that, it's just, you know, having like consistent alignment with sales and CS. So ensuring that sales understand what it takes to be successful, they understand the ideal customer profile, they understand what kind of things they can be giving customers in advance of them signing to be prepared for what it takes to be successful. And then also, you know, back to CS, like ensuring that CS has a good understanding of the challenges that sales have. Like, why is it taking sales this amount of time to win a customer? What reservations did they have in that process? Why did the customer only buy in at this value when they should have bought in at this value? So that communication between teams is super powerful, because you don't want your customer to feel like they're having to repeat themselves, you know, to different people, particularly at that critical point where the clock has started, right? They've signed the contract and they need to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So we're running up against the end of the hour here, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So this does take us to the end of our journey here today. I want to offer a huge thank you to our panelists for taking the time to be with us, sharing their insights and their experiences. I hope everyone found this discussion useful. If we did not get to your question, you will hear from us probably tomorrow. We'll email you and make sure that we have your question answered. Please keep an eye out for updates. We're going to share the recording of this discussion on our social media pages. If anyone has customer success topics that they would like to see UserIQ host discussions about, please feel free to email me. My email is on the screen. You can also stalk me and find me on LinkedIn, message me. I would love to connect. Our next discussion is in November. We're going to be talking about building a career in customer success, and we already have 2 really good panelists signed on, so it's going to be great. We hope to see you guys there. And one last thing, we have a quick 2-question survey that's going to pop up when you log out of this webinar. If you guys would just take 30 to 60 seconds to answer a question or 2, we would so appreciate it. But thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you, Jared. You guys were awesome.
Pleasure.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.